Hello, and this is lesson number 7 for V-Ray 3 for Rhino 6. In this little lesson, we're going to learn how to disable the Rhino sky that we just put in, and we are going to replace that sky with a dome light and an HDRI background. Okay. Now, hopefully you were at the lecture and you learned about what an HDRI background is and what it can do for you. Okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to jump into my perspective view. Okay, and just like I always do, I'm going to click on my asset editor and I'm going to go into my interactive render and I'm going to go ahead and click that, V-Ray Interactive. And as you can see, we still have the sky and all the settings from the previous lecture. Okay, so the first thing we're going to have to do is get rid of that sky and disable it. All right, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to go up here into my assets, into my settings, and right down here where it says environment. Whoop, sorry about that. Right here where it says environment, I'm going to disable this. I'm going to check this, and that's going to disable my sky. And so watch the frame buffer. You're going to see a drastic change. Yep. So that's disabled the sky, disabled this, and now it's black. Okay. So the next thing I want to do is I'm going to go ahead and go over to my lighting tab here, and you can see I've got a sun. All right, so even though the sky's been disabled and it's black, I still need to turn off the sun because the sun is actually still illuminating it. So you can see there's shadows here. Okay, it's just no blue background like we had before. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to click this little icon here, which basically will turn the sun off and on. I'm going to go ahead and click that, and it's going to get really, really dark, so don't panic. Okay, you can still barely see it. No sun, not much going on there. Okay. So now what we need to do is we're going to go ahead and add a dome light. Okay, so it's best to add the dome light in the top view. I'm going to go ahead and double click on here, and it doesn't matter where you put the dome light. In fact, I'm just going to put it here above our text. Okay, it's just like the directional light. It's not, a dome light doesn't actually exist anywhere. It's just an icon that you can click on and move to affect the dome light, as it were. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to go up to my V-Ray panel, and I'm going to select V-Ray lights, and I'm going to go down to dome light, right? And I'm going to go ahead and click right above my text here. Okay, and as you can see, it actually gave me something that looks like a lot like a directional light, but that is for some reason the dome light icon now. It used to be a little round thing, but now it's this. So what happens is once you've put this light in there, it's going to ask you for an HDRI to light your scene with. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and click on the HDRI here, skies, and I've got two skies. I've got a night sky and I've got a partly cloudy sky. So I'm going to click on the partly cloudy sky and I'm going to hit open. Okay, and now I've actually got, well, something that's extremely dark. Okay, believe it or not, you can see a little bit of change here. Okay, now a lot of people will just take what they have here and they'll just ramp the intensity up, right? And even at 2, it's not that much, right? I could, of course, change it to say 4, and it starts to change a little bit more, and I could go up to 8, and we should have something pretty serious. Okay, and I'm just going to double it, or I'll go up to 12. And by the way, what I'm doing here, don't do this. Okay, it's not the way to approach it. So we're going to go back to number 1. Click. It's going to get dark again, right? Just like we've been doing in all the other stuff. It's all about the camera, right? So we're going to go ahead and go back to our settings, and I'm going to go down to my camera. Okay, I've got my standard camera, and I'm going to go to my exposure. Okay, so right now my exposure is at 14, and again, if you forget which way to go, right? If the number gets higher, it's going to get darker. If the number gets lower, it's going to get lighter, right? So we clearly need it to go lighter. All right, I happen to know, because I've done this, that if we go down to 7.5 with this particular HDRI, you get pretty decent illumination, right? You can still do post-processing, and I'll show you how to do that at a later date. Right now, we're just learning how to put the dome in and set the exposure, okay? Now, you'll notice if I go up to 9, or if I go up to 8, the building's a little too dark, and if I go down to 7, starting to get washed out a little bit. So like I said, 7.5 is a pretty good exposure setting for this particular HDRI. All right, I'm going to go ahead and leave it there. Now, the other thing that an HDRI will do is, remember, there's an image that has light values for each pixel that is projected on this dome, right? And this dome is, well, hemispherical, semi-spherical, it's half a sphere, right? Now, you have the ability to rotate that dome to change the background. Okay, so I've got my icon up here that represents the dome light. You can see in our real-time rendering, we've got a sky here. Now watch this. As I begin to rotate that, it's going to change a little bit. And as I rotate it some more, it'll change a little bit more. Rotate it more. You can see the clouds changing. You can see the sun actually beginning to, it was more or less behind that house right there. So I'm going to go ahead and at this point, you could go ahead and do a couple renderings. I'm going to go ahead and stop the lesson right here, and I will see you in the next lesson. Okay, thanks very much. Bye-bye.